The Woman in the Wrong Bathroom. Completely original retelling inspired by the tone and pacing of story 1 and 2 from your competitor. Make sure you're comfortable, my mother always said. But that rule didn't matter much the day she went to refill her prescription at Westbridge General, a hospital old enough to have more ghost stories than functioning elevators. She was waiting near the outpatient pharmacy when the nurse at the counter told everyone the restroom nearby was temporarily closed for cleaning. So Mom walked down the quieter corridor, the one leading to the surgical waiting area, where foot traffic is usually limited to tired nurses and anxious families. The restroom there was nearly empty, just the soft drip of a faucet and the hum of overhead lights. She washed her hands, counting down the minutes until she could leave. That was when the door opened. An older woman stepped inside, moving slowly with the help of a silver walker. Her hospital gown was neatly tied, and she moved like someone who had spent years relying on that metal frame. Mom nodded politely as the woman went into the large handicap stall. A few seconds later, the door creaked again, and a younger woman came in. Dark hair, green scrubs, a visitor's badge. She headed straight into the same stall. Mom paused, eyebrows raised. 2 people fitting into that tiny space meant someone needed help, so she didn't question it. She simply waited, drying her hands and listening. But after about a minute, the younger woman stepped back out, alone. She didn't look worried. Didn't look rushed. She didn't even wash her hands. She simply walked right out of the bathroom, letting the heavy door shut behind her. Mom waited. 5 seconds. 10. 20. No sound came from the stall. No shifting metal. No footsteps. No voice. Not even a cough. Another woman who had been at the mirror gave my mom a puzzled look, as if silently asking, "Is she okay in there?" Finally, the woman approached the stall and tapped the door. No answer. She pushed it open. It swung wide without resistance. The stall was completely empty. Not only was the older woman gone, but her walker, the large, shiny metal one that couldn't fit under a door or vanish without someone seeing it, was missing too. Mom walked over, checking the stall herself. The rails were cold. The toilet lid was up. No feet on the floor. No belongings. No trace. Nothing. Just a faint, lingering smell of antiseptic and something else. Something oddly floral. The other woman backed away from the stall, her hands trembling slightly. "Did she leave?" she whispered. "She couldn't have." Mom pointed to the door. "We'd have heard it open." They stared at each other for a long moment, both searching for explanations that made sense in daylight. None came. Later, when Mom told me the story, she mentioned the most unsettling detail. "The younger woman never looked inside the stall before leaving," she said. "It was like she walked in with someone who wasn't actually there. Hospitals are full of people who come and go, but some never truly leave." And that hallway? The surgical wing? Years later, I found a staff forum online where nurses anonymously traded stories. Multiple posts mentioned the same thing. A woman with a walker who appears in the restroom near the surgical waiting area, and disappears before anyone can help her. The woman in room 314. By the time I turned 23, I'd worked in 3 hospitals, but none unsettled me the way Brookside Medical did. It wasn't the age of the building, though it was old enough to have a basement full of retired equipment, and pipes that clanged at random. It was the silence, the kind of silence that pressed against your ears, like the building was listening. The strangest thing that ever happened to me started on a slow Tuesday evening. I was assigned to the step-down unit on the 3rd floor, helping with vitals and patient checks before shift change. Room 314 was one of my last stops. It was supposed to be empty. The previous patient had been discharged earlier that afternoon. When I pushed the door open, the room felt colder than the hallway. The blinds rattled slightly even though the windows were sealed shut, and the overhead light flickered like it couldn't decide whether to stay on or off. I stepped inside anyway. Habit. As I crossed the room, I heard it. "Nurse, please. Please help me." A woman's voice. Clear. Desperate. Coming from the far corner behind the privacy curtain. My first thought was simple: they must have assigned someone new to this room without updating the chart. But when I pulled the curtain back, the bed was empty. Perfectly made. Sheets crisp. No dent in the mattress. No sign anyone had lain there in hours. I backed up slowly. "Hello?" I called out. "Anyone in here?" Silence. I did another quick sweep, leaning down to look under the bed even though that made no sense. Nothing. No visitor. No patient. No equipment. I stepped back into the hall and flagged Evelyn, one of the senior nurses who'd worked there for almost 20 years. "There's someone in 314, I said. "A woman. She's calling for help." Evelyn didn't blink. Didn't look surprised. Didn't even look curious. She sighed. "Oh, her again?" My stomach dropped. "What do you mean, again?" Evelyn leaned against the wall as if she'd explained this 100 times. "That room used to be part of the cardiac wing years ago," she said. "A woman in her 50s died there during a code. She kept screaming for help, right until the very last breath." She tapped her pen against her clipboard. "Sometimes new staff hear her. It fades over time." I felt a cold shiver crawl up my back. "She's stuck?" I whispered. "Not stuck," Evelyn said. "Just loud. Some people leave echoes behind." I tried to laugh, but it sounded shaky even to my own ears. "I heard her twice," I said. "Begging." Evelyn nodded like she'd expected that. "She's clearer when the unit's quiet. Nights. Rainstorms. Power outages." She lowered her voice. "And when someone's alone." That last part didn't help. Still, I went on with my night. The rest of my rounds were uneventful until I passed 314 again on my way to the supply closet. I wasn't even planning to stop, I was just passing by. Then the door opened. On its own. A slow, soft crack, pushing just wide enough for the darkness inside to spill out into the hallway. I froze. My breath caught. And then I heard it. "Please, don't leave me." This time, the voice was right behind the cracked door, as if the woman was standing just out of sight. I stepped backward until I reached the nurse's station. Evelyn's eyes met mine. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Some rooms in a hospital hold more than memories. Some hold voices. And room 314 was one of them. The night we heard the children. By the time winter came, the strange occurrences at Brookside had become a rhythm woven into our night shifts. A slammed door here. A light that flickered too long. A call button pressed in an empty room. But nothing prepared me for the night we heard the children. It was just past 2 a.m., the dead hour when hospitals feel more like forgotten cities than places of healing. The halls were quiet except for the gentle beep of monitors and the occasional shuffle of shoes against polished floors. I was restocking floor supplies near the pediatric overflow wing, a hallway that hadn't housed children in years. The wing was shut down after renovations never got funding, so the rooms stood untouched, lights dim, beds stripped bare. I had just sealed a box of saline when I heard it. A small giggle. Sharp. Crisp. As clear as if a child were standing a few feet behind me. I froze mid-step. The sound echoed softly off the empty walls. Then I heard another giggle, higher pitched, like a second child joined in. I stepped into the corridor and peered down the long stretch of shadowed rooms. No movement. No open doors. No staff. Just dim, bluish light leaking from exit signs. I walked a few steps forward, my pulse pounding. "Hello? Is someone out of bed?" I called, trying to sound calm. No answer. I reached the first room and peeked inside. Empty. Clean. Silent. Then the second room. Nothing. By the time I reached the third room, I almost turned back, until a sudden burst of cold air brushed past my arm. Not a breeze. Not AC. It felt like someone small had run right by me. My entire body went rigid. Then a voice, a child's whisper, drifted from inside the dark room. "Come play with us." Every instinct I had screamed to leave, but something stronger than fear pushed me forward, the need to make sure no real child had wandered into this forgotten wing. I stepped into the doorway. The room was pitch black except for the faint glow of moonlight through the blinds. The bed frame sat bare. The sink cabinet was open. And in the center of the room, the air shimmered, just barely, like heat rising off pavement. But the room was cold. As I stared, the shimmering thickened, shaping itself into something not quite visible, the faint outline of two small figures side by side. Not solid. Not fully formed. But undeniably there. They didn't move. They didn't breathe. They just stood, watching me in a silence that felt too heavy to be human. I stepped backward until I hit the hallway wall, unable to breathe. And then, from the far end of the corridor, a voice. "What are you doing down there?" I whipped around to see Evelyn approaching, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. Before I could speak, she grabbed my wrist and pulled me away from the room. "You do not enter that wing at night," she whispered sharply. "I heard laughing," I said, my voice shaking. "Two kids." Evelyn didn't look surprised. Her face softened with a tired, haunted expression. "That wing used to be our pediatric isolation unit," she said quietly. "Long before you worked here. Two siblings were admitted during a severe outbreak, years apart. First the boy, then the girl. Either of them made it." I swallowed hard. "They still play?" I whispered. "They linger," Evelyn corrected gently. "Most don't hear them. But some staff, the ones who pay attention, do." She glanced down the hall. "Don't go back there alone." We walked in silence toward the nurse's station. Behind us, faint but undeniable, the soft patter of tiny footsteps followed for a few seconds. Then stopped. I didn't turn around. Some things in a hospital deserve attention. Others only want to be remembered. And the children of Brookside? They wanted both.